As South Africa commemorates 30 years of freedom and democracy, the government will receive the remains of 49 former liberation fighters who passed away in exile in Zimbabwe and Zambia. Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture Gayton McKenzie will receive the remains at Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria on Wednesday. For more on the exile repatriation program, I'm joined by Obed Bapela, who is the ANC's International Relations Subcommittee Deputy Chairperson. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Thanks very much for your time.
Good afternoon, and also to your viewers.
30 years is what it has taken to bring the remains of these struggle hero. Or is it a question of perhaps better late than never?
Well, better late than ever. However, it's not the first time that we are bringing. We have already brought back almost 100 in the past 30 years, but it was a very slow program at the time. It is the first time that we are bringing massive 49 at a go, because at that time we'll bring them in 10 and 5s and 2s. So we think therefore that we've got it right now, so that majority of them should be brought back. We have 1,000 people buried across various countries in Africa, in Europe, in America and Latin America, which we need to bring back over a period of time. We hope this process will be more hastened and regular, and ensure therefore that those remains of our heroes and heroines are brought back finally to their resting country, to rest in peace, next to their loved ones, families, who have always been saying, when are they coming back? We know that there's an international law that a soldier get buried where they die. And that is an international norm. But in South Africa, quite a number of people had pleaded with us that they needed to bring them home so that they can be next door to them, nearer them. We still are contemplating of developing a National Heroes Acre where they could then be settled in, but unfortunately, we still do not have it. So they will be handed over to provinces and municipalities next to their homes, so that they can be buried in local cemeteries, hoping that there's a dedicated site in those graves for Heroes Acre of some kind that then is localized, but our national heroes will be buried there.
And then, of course, I mean, it means closure for the many families that have been imploring you to bring the remains of their loved ones.
Definitely is a closure for a lot of them. When they were in Zambia and Zimbabwe last week and a week before, they were so happy, they cried and said, finally, we are here to fetch you, as they were doing their rituals, talking and communicating spirituality through the mediums that they had used. And you could see the happiness and the cry and the tears that were coming down as they were now saying, this moment has finally arrived. And thank you, government, and thank you, ANC. Majority of them, obviously, they are ANC members, but will be repatriating everybody, whatever the liberation movement that had lost their people, PAC, ANC, and the BCM at the time, the Black Consciousness Movement. So whenever we find those graves, we will definitely do. And in these people that are coming, the heroes that are coming, we have the former president of the PAC, Waterkloof is also amongst them, but our ANC Secretary General from 1958 to 1978, Advocate Dumanokwe, our women head of section, the first, Mayor Florence Moposha, who was succeeded by Mayor Gertrude Shope, who is still alive, luckily, 99-year-old now. So finally, their remains will be coming up. From the journalist fraternity, Ted Machikiza, a famous journalist in the drum, who was doing a lot of entertainment, who ended up becoming a soldier carrying a gun for the liberation of his people, will also be coming to indicate that this liberation was fought by almost everybody and whatever profession they were. They wanted freedom, which we have now got, and we need to honor them as freedom fighters as they come back home.
In your assessment, what's been responsible for the slow progress on this program?
Initially, it was the countries that they had hosted the graves for so many years. They couldn't understand why we wanted to take them back home because a soldier, as
it took a lot of convincing.
It's a lot of convincing negotiations. But secondly, also, they wanted us to, after exhuming them, what do you do with that hole that will live in their graves? And I think we still owe Angola in the 100 that came back, and Botswana. Some graves are sealed and some are not sealed. So hence we have added a program of memorialization in the host country and back home where they're going to be buried, so that we can then have a stone that says, here were the remains of so-and-so. He has now since repatriated back to his or her home country, and at least they keep a memory. And where we are going to bury them also, to then also memorize those particular people. So it took a lot of that, but it meant more cost, obviously, on the side of government. They had also to look at the budget that has to do that, but also the coordination that has finally now happened, which was not there between the Defence Force, the Arts and Culture, the missing person task team in the Justice. Now the task team is being headed by the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, who is now the chair, and will then begin to see smoothness now that the countries have opened up their doors. They now understand the call that has been made by families.
But how much of that was also the fact that you may have lost touch with some of your sister organizations in the form of, struggle, credentials, but also changes, because in various parts of the continent there has been changes where the people who are now in power are no longer the people who were your were the people you struggled with and maintained good relations with back in the day.
Definitely, it also had an impact, particularly in Zambia, where UNIP was the host for many, many years. When they were in power, they gave us the headquarters as the African National Congress. And then, but when now there's a new government, you must also begin to relate, engage with that government, explain to them the processes that we had started a long time ago. And then in Angola, it was the issue of, before you tell us what they're going to do with the holes that you'll be leaving gaping, what then do you do? So there's still same comrades. However, they were very, very fast. But also Angola is a very difficult terrain. The graves are massive. There are many. They are all over in the field, in the bush. Some covered by land mice, so that is not easy for human beings to go and exhume. So the program, from the look of things, might take us 4 to 10 years, depending on how fast do we demine the area. But also in Angola, we didn't know who is buried in which grave, because they were just buried in a hurry, as UNITA forces at the time were advancing and attacking. And also the South African soldiers during the Kutekwinavalo as they were advancing. So comrades that died, they were just buried in a hurry. So it may take years, that's why I'm saying 4 to 5 to 10 years because of these particular logistical issues. But where the graves are fine is Zambia, is Zimbabwe, is Tanzania, is Uganda. So those will quickly be fast-tracked, but Angola and others are going to take us time. Botswana is going to be easy. Swaziland, unfortunately, some were kidnapped by the apartheid police and killed somewhere in the border and buried in the border lines. And those police, some of them are dying, and then some are still refusing to talk about so-and-so where they were buried. Others, they were burned beyond, and then their ashes thrown in various streams and rivers. So not everybody will be recovered, but the processes of tracking and tracing will continue despite, so that the families and us as the ANC and parties that fought in the liberation struggle can find solace and peace that finally all our heroes and heroines are here.
But it would also seem that you are not as supportive of some of the initiatives that families, for example, have undertaken. I'm thinking here of the Craddock Four, right? I'm thinking here of, the Minister of Justice, sister, they have been talking about getting the NPA precisely for, the reasons you've also touched on, the fact that these old I mean, these policemen who were responsible for some of those atrocities are in fact a dying breed, you know, these families want closure, but they are not getting. The NPA is not moving on, you know, getting these people, you know, put before some kind of an inquiry and being asked questions, and for the families to get answers so they can find closure. But politically, these families feel that they are not supported.
Well, the wheels of justice have been moving very, very slowly, I must say, and I can understand the frustrations of the families. But our resolution and resolve remains that where the truth is needed, we still have to pursue, because the TRC has made a lot of recommendations, but there have been slackishness in terms of moving on investigating further those that might have been involved. And as I said also, you are saying that this breed is a dying breed of the police that were there. So those who are still there, let's try our best really to get closure for everyone, that this freedom was not free, and then families lost their loved ones and will want to know the truth. And then until the truth is known, it's not just going to be difficult. But also documents got banned, and then some documents were hidden, some documents have been obviously thrown away. So even to trace that truth is not just going to be an easy thing. But I'm glad that Timol case has really revealed, and then those people have been found wanting. The causes for in Krugersdorp, also the truth is now emerging. Those who were involved are facing the might of the law. And we just hope, therefore, with the credit for and others, who likely I've worked with as a young boy then in Kredok. If you remember the Union flag, the Soviet Union flag, the ANC flag, and the Communist Party flag that were held by youngsters and young people during the funeral of Matthew Konyo and the others. I was there and I was alive. I also want to see that closure as to the people who were involved. But as you said, time is not on our side. And I just hope that one day somebody somewhere will come forward and say, let me just tell the truth now.
Yeah, no, the point I'm really making is that the feeling one gets from the families is that they don't feel as supported, that they are on their own and they have to fight this. They have to fight this alone. I mean, often I would see the Secretary General of the ANC taking photos at meetings that they're attending with sister organizations from Zimbabwe or Zambia, all the way to the Chinese. But they don't feel, the families don't feel prioritized, and that's really the point that they have been making. Certainly in the, I mean, the Timor family was among those, the Biko family, the families of the Kradok all kind of feel that way.
Well, that feeling is there definitely, and indeed I've seen it, and I've listened to Kolomani, which is the voice of those particular, some of the families, that the process is very slow, and I agree with them. And then when you go to the investigating authorities, because there can only be one center of investigating, there seems to be not much prioritization on these matters. They are dealing with the current issues of corruption and others, which are key and important, but also they need equally to have a special task force that can then be established really to fast track on these issues before those cops can die. And they still refuse to tell the truth. If you can see the Timol case, they had really to bring a lot of evidence, and even the witnesses are dying on one side for us to get to know the truth. But we hope, therefore, that this process of the repatriations of the remains wherever they are will also begin to be realized as a program that makes the nation to unite, that bring closure to families, but then equally, as you said, to then begin to elevate this issue and say, can it be fast-tracked in a particular way, and ask the investigating authorities to do so. I will take that as one of the urgent matters that needs to be. Luckily, I sit in the Archives Committee of the African National Congress, which is involved in this particular program. I will raise it also tonight when we meet in the meeting, planning the reburials, to say there is this issue of the families that still feels that their loved ones, they cannot be found, or the truth is not coming out for those that are known to have been involved in the killing of their loved ones.
Before I let you go, let me take the opportunity of you being here. I mean, leaders of, we have 140 leaders meeting in the, at the United Nations as we speak. So many wars, I mean, from what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening in the Sudan, what is happening in the Ukraine. Someone, a guest I heard earlier, is not hopeful that that gathering is going to do anything differently, or whether they will have any impact on these wars that are currently going on. As the International Committee, as the International Affairs Committee of the ANC, what kind of influence do you have? Do you even have discussions around what is happening now? Of course, not just the wars. We're also talking about the president the other day, as he came out of a flight going into that meeting, was talking about the restructuring of the UN Security Council, which, as you know, has been an issue for as long as this abnormal thing has been going on, where you have a handful of countries basically dictating to the world how things should be done. Do you have discussion, in other words, outside? Because we talk every day about having lost elections, busy with renewal and all those things. Do conversations around these issues even happen in the context of everything that you're confronted with currently? Definitely
the reform or transformation of the international instruments is part one, particularly the UN, in particular, the UN Security Council. We started it when the UN was turning 60 years, some almost 15 years ago, and very soon it will be 80 years old. And we said this organization cannot continue to operate as if it is 1945, when it got established, replacing the League of Nations. And we then said that these are the bodies that need to transform, and one of it is UN Security Council, to remove the veto system, to allow majority to be the decision-making, unlike one country amongst the top 5 that will always veto, and once it vetoes, that decision cannot go anywhere. We have called for the ceasefire on Palestine. It got vetoed by one country, and we still don't have ceasefire. 40,000 people are dead. Next month, on the 7th of October, we'll be commemorating the first incident that led to this massive scale of deaths that are taking place, the October 7, as it was later known. And we are worried, therefore, that the pace of transforming, it's not happening. And those who are enjoying the power do not let that one power go. But I'm glad that some of them are now beginning to say, let's expand the UN Security Council. But expansion is not enough. It means we must also begin to review the veto system so that everyone can be binded by the decisions that are taken by a majority, like it is in the UN Security Council.